My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm 32 years old, and about 7 weeks after I walked away from a relationship that looked completely stable from the outside, I finally understood something I should have recognized much earlier, that when a man starts redefining connection to justify control, the relationship is already over. I just hadn't admitted it yet. Not until that Wednesday night. On paper, Daniel and I made sense. We lived in a clean, modern house about 20 minutes outside Tampa. Floor-to-ceiling windows, neutral tones, everything curated just enough to look effortless. The kind of place people compliment when they don't know you well enough to say anything real. Everything looked balanced, controlled, intentional. I worked as a product manager for a mid-sized fintech company. My life was structured. Deadlines, roadmaps, long planning cycles. I made just over $90,000 a year. Predictable, stable. Daniel was the opposite. More fluid, more expressive. He worked as a freelance designer when we met. Branding packages, social media visuals, small lifestyle startups across South Florida. He was talented, no question about that, but inconsistent. Some months he made more than I did. Other months he barely covered his expenses. He used to call that freedom. I used to call it potential. About 1.5 years into our relationship, he started talking about launching his own skincare line, clean ingredients, minimalist branding, something that carried his name. At first, it sounded like a side project. To me, it sounded like a product, so I treated it like one. I asked about margins, supply chain, customer acquisition cost. He rolled his eyes at that. "Claire, you overthink everything," he said once, leaning back in his chair like the answer bored him. "Real entrepreneurs move on instinct." Still, I believed in him. That was my first mistake. I helped him register the company under his name. I built the website myself over weekends. I used my savings to fund the first manufacturing run because he didn't have the capital. I handled supplier contracts, negotiated pricing, set up the back-end systems. Officially, it was his brand. Unofficially, I built the structure that allowed it to exist. And the business worked. Within 8 months, he was making more than freelance had ever brought him. He stopped taking client work, started introducing himself as a founder. At dinners, he would joke, "This is Claire, my unofficial assistant." People laughed. I smiled. I told myself it was harmless. Looking back, that was the first shift. It didn't happen all at once. It was slower than that. Like watching someone adjust their posture over months until you realize they're standing differently. When revenue became consistent, he stopped asking for input. In the beginning, we had weekly check-ins at the kitchen table. I would show him spreadsheets. We talked about retention, inventory turnover. After he quit freelance work, those conversations disappeared. "Meetings feel corporate," he said. "I want to keep things creative." He also started spending more. At first, it made sense. Better product photography, influencer gifting, a part-time assistant. Then it drifted. A new car lease because founders shouldn't drive something basic. Designer outfits for networking events in Miami. A PR consultant that produced no measurable return. I didn't stop him. The company was legally his. I had made sure of that. My involvement was invisible on paper. Just the girlfriend who helped. But the tone in our relationship shifted too. He started correcting me in front of people. If someone complimented the website, he would say he guided the vision and I just implemented it. If someone asked how he scaled so fast, he'd laugh. I had to teach Claire to think bigger. The jokes stopped feeling like jokes. There was always an edge. One night at dinner with my friends, he said something that stayed with me. "Ambition is attractive," he said casually. "Some people are just comfortable being safe." He didn't look at me when he said it. He didn't need to. I addressed it that same night, privately. "I don't appreciate being minimized in front of people," I told him. He smiled like I had missed the point. "You're being sensitive," he said. "Confident women don't need constant credit." I didn't argue. I just said I wouldn't sit through that again. That was the first boundary I set. It didn't hold. Around that time, my best friend Ryan started coming around more often. We'd known each other since college. She worked in real estate development. Confident, social, the kind of woman who walked into a room and immediately owned it. Daniel liked that energy. At first, I thought it was harmless. "She gets it," Daniel said once. "She understands risk, scale, big moves." I didn't feel threatened. I had never been insecure about my friends, but I noticed something: the comparisons. If Ryan talked about a risky deal, Daniel would glance at me. Some people are wired for big swings. If I pointed out downsides, he'd smirk. "That's why you work corporate." One weekend, Ryan stayed over. The 3 of us went out to dinner. Daniel drank more than usual. He spent most of the night debating business with her. At one point, he said something that didn't sit right. I could take this brand national within a year, he said, eyes locked on Ryan. If I had the right partner. I asked what he meant. He smiled. Business partner. But the look he gave me said something else. That night, after Ryan went to the guest room, I said it directly. This dynamic feels off. I'm not accusing you of anything, I added. I'm pointing out the pattern, the comparisons, the way you align with her over me. Daniel laughed. You're imagining competition, he said, because you're threatened. That word, threatened. I felt something settle in my chest, not anger, clarity. If you want a different kind of person, I said quietly, you should say it. He shook his head. You're overanalyzing again. I didn't argue. I went to bed, and I made a decision. I would observe, not react, because I've learned something in my work. Data always surfaces, eventually. I just didn't expect it to surface the way it did. The data surfaced on a Tuesday night, not dramatically, not the way people imagine these things happen. No suspicious messages, no frantic searching, just timing. I was updating the back end of the website, routine maintenance, small fixes. Daniel had gone to what he called a networking mixer in Miami earlier that evening. Ryan had texted me that same afternoon. Funny coincidence, she wrote. I'm in Miami too. Site visit. I didn't think anything of it. Not then. Around midnight, a confirmation email came through. It was tied to the business account, still synced to my laptop because I handled supplier communication. Hotel booking. Downtown Miami. 1 king bed. 2 guests. I stared at the screen longer than I want to admit. The booking time was 7:42 p.m., about an hour after Daniel said the event started. I didn't react immediately. I checked the company calendar. No brand events the next morning. No retail meetings. Nothing that required an overnight stay. At 1:15 a.m., my phone lit up. Daniel. Hey, I might just crash at a friend's place in Brickell. Had a couple drinks. Don't want to drive. I read it twice. Then I typed back. That's fine. No confrontation. No accusation. I closed the message and went back to the laptop. Then I did something simple. I called the hotel. I asked to confirm a reservation under his name. They didn't give details, but they confirmed it was active. That was enough. I didn't drive to Miami. I didn't create a scene. I went to bed. The next afternoon, he came home. Calm, relaxed, like nothing had shifted. How was the event? I asked. Good, he said. Productive. Did you stay at a hotel? There was a pause. Just half a second. Then he nodded. Yeah, needed quiet to think. I held his gaze. Alone? Another pause. Then he said it. Yes. I nodded slowly. I saw the reservation, I said. 2 guests. Something changed in his expression. Not guilt. Adjustment. Like he was recalculating the angle. You're making this a bigger deal than it is, he said. Adults can share space without it meaning anything. I let that sit. Then I asked one question. Was it Ryan? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence is a form of confirmation. And then, he said it. The sentence that ended everything. You're too boring to keep a man like me, Claire. For a moment, I thought I would feel something dramatic. Anger. Shock. Collapse. But I didn't. Something settled instead. Like a decision that had already been made, finally catching up to reality. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And I realized something I hadn't fully admitted before. He needed an audience. And I had stopped performing. We're done, I said. He blinked. Wait, what? Oh, we're done, I repeated. Not for space, not to think about it. Done. He let out a short laugh. Claire, you're overreacting. It was one night. It wasn't one night, I said calmly. It was a pattern. The comparisons, the disrespect, the alignment. He shook his head. Why, you're stuck in rules. Successful people don't think like that. I didn't argue. I just said what mattered. This is my house. It's in my name. You have 24 hours to pack your things. That got his attention. You're serious? Yes. That's insane. No, I said quietly. It's decisive. He stared at me like he was waiting for negotiation. There wasn't any. I'll change the locks after 24 hours, I added. I'll send it in writing so there's no confusion. He called me dramatic. I didn't respond. I sent the email anyway. Clear, documented, final. And then I did something he didn't expect. The business might have been in his name, but the infrastructure wasn't. I built it. The hosting account, mine. The payment processor connected to my LLC. Supplier contracts negotiated by me, requiring my approval for volume pricing. I had never hidden that. He had just never cared about the details. That night, while he packed, I sat in the living room with my laptop. Not emotional. Methodical. I mapped everything. Hosting. Payment processing. Email marketing systems. CRM. Supplier agreements. Affiliate dashboards. I didn't delete anything. I exported backups. Documented credentials. Created clean separation. The next morning, I called a lawyer friend. I explained the structure. My involvement. The lack of formal contracts tying me to his company. Can I withdraw my systems? I asked. Yes, he said. You're removing your assets, not sabotaging his business. That distinction mattered. I wasn't destroying anything. I was stepping away. Completely. Over the next week, I started unwinding it. Quietly. I canceled the merchant account. 30-day notice. Notified suppliers that future orders would require renegotiation without my volume guarantees. Transferred website files to him with a clear deadline for hosting termination. No drama. No warning beyond what was legally required. Just removal. At first, he didn't notice. Sales were still coming in. Orders still processing. From the outside, everything looked stable. That illusion didn't last. He noticed when payouts paused. When customers started emailing about failed checkouts. That conversation felt different, less confident, more urgent. By then, he was already out of the house. I had changed the locks exactly 24 hours after our conversation, just like I said I would. His things were packed neatly by the door when he came back with his older brother. I stayed the entire time. No shouting, no theatrics, just distance. 3 days later, my phone rang. Daniel, I answered. What's going on with the site? He asked, his voice tighter than before. Payments aren't processing. Customers are complaining. Nothing's wrong, I said. The merchant account tied to my LLC reached its termination date. You can't just pull support like that. I can, I replied calmly. I was never your employee. There was no agreement locking me in. You're trying to destroy me. No, I said. I'm removing myself. There's a difference. There was silence on the other end. Then he said it again. You're being petty because I chose someone more exciting. That word, exciting. I almost smiled. Is Ryan stepping in to rebuild your back end? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then, quieter. He's not technical, but he believes in the vision. Belief. I leaned back slightly. Belief doesn't replace infrastructure, Daniel. And for the first time, he didn't have a response. The shift didn't happen all at once. It never does. From the outside, Daniel's brand still looked intact for a few days after that call. The website was up. Social media still active. Old posts still circulating. But underneath it, things were already breaking. Quietly. I didn't monitor it obsessively. I didn't need to. People talk. Mutual friends started mentioning things without realizing I already knew. Hey, is Daniel's site glitching? One of them asked casually over lunch. I tried to order something and it wouldn't go through. I shrugged. I'm not involved anymore. That was the truth. By the end of that week, the cracks became visible. Customers started posting screenshots of failed checkouts. Comments appeared under his posts. Is anyone else having issues with payment? I've been trying to order for 2 days. Customer service hasn't responded. The illusion of control started slipping, and Daniel wasn't equipped to handle that kind of pressure alone. He called again. This time, he didn't try to sound composed. What did you do? He asked, voice tight, like he was holding something back. I told you, I said. I removed my systems. You didn't have to do it like this. I gave notice, I replied, in writing. You knew this would happen. I paused for a moment. Yes, I said, I did. Silence. Then, you're ruining years of my work over one mistake. I let that sit between us. One mistake doesn't usually involve months of behavior leading up to it, I said quietly. He exhaled sharply. This is about Ryan, isn't it? No, I said, this is about me. He didn't understand the difference. I could hear it in the way he shifted the conversation. Ryan said you were always like this, he continued. Controlled, calculated, waiting for leverage. That made me pause. Not because it hurt, because it confirmed something. Ryan had been part of the narrative longer than I had allowed myself to believe. Is he helping you? I asked. There was a delay. Then, he's busy right now. Busy? That word did more damage than anything else, because it wasn't just an excuse. It was a pattern. Daniel, I said calmly, belief and attention aren't the same thing. He didn't respond, because he already knew. Within another week, things escalated. Suppliers started reaching out to him directly. Without my volume guarantees, pricing shifted. Margins cut almost in half. Minimum order quantities increased. Cash flow tightened. The PR consultant invoice came due. Influencers started asking about delayed affiliate payouts. The structure I had built wasn't just convenience. It was stability. And without it, everything became heavier, more expensive, more fragile. He called again, angrier this time. You set me up to fail, he said. No, I replied. I set you up to succeed. You just didn't understand what that required. That's not fair. Neither was what you did. Silence again. Then something changed. His voice dropped. Lower, less aggressive. Ryan isn't answering my calls. There it was. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just confirmation. I leaned back in my chair. I'm not surprised, I said. You knew? He asked, sharper now. I understood the type of dynamic you were stepping into. You don't know him like I do. No, I said. I know patterns. That ended the call. After that, he stopped reaching out for a few days. Until Friday. He showed up at my office, unannounced. Security called up. There's someone here asking for you, they said. Says it's urgent. I considered saying no, but I didn't want a scene. I'll meet him in the lobby, I said. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. No carefully styled outfit. No curated confidence. Just tired. His hair pulled back, dark circles under his eyes. For the first time in months, he looked real. What do you want, Daniel? I asked. He stepped closer. Ryan told me he needs space, he said. That things escalated too fast. I didn't respond. He said he thought I understood that this wasn't serious. The words hung in the air. Heavy? Daniel hesitated. I thought we were building something. I studied him for a moment. You were, I said. Just not what you thought. That's cold. No, I said quietly. That's accurate. He looked at me like he was trying to find something familiar, something he could still control. Then he shifted. Can you just reconnect the payment system? He asked. Temporarily, a couple weeks, just until I figure things out. There it was. Not apology. Not accountability. Request. I can't do that, I said. Why not? Because the system is tied to my LLC, I replied. If something goes wrong, chargebacks, unpaid suppliers, it comes back to me. You think I'd let that happen? I held his gaze. I think I don't trust you to prioritize anything beyond what benefits you in the moment. That landed. He stepped back slightly. You're proving my point, he said. You have no passion. I almost smiled. Passion without loyalty is just chaos. For a second, he looked like he wanted to argue. Then, he didn't. He just stood there, quiet, as if he was finally realizing something he couldn't reverse. When he walked out of the building, he didn't look back. And I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't, because there was someone else. His older brother, Samuel Carter. He had come with him the day he moved out. Quiet, observant. The kind of person who didn't fill silence just to avoid it. He carried most of the boxes. Didn't comment when Daniel made small remarks under his breath. Didn't laugh at me. That alone made him different. A few days after the office incident, he texted me. I don't want to be on the middle, he wrote, but I think you deserve to know. This didn't start with that night. I read the message twice. Then I replied. What do you mean? There was a pause. Then, they'd been talking for months. Late calls, private conversations. It wasn't physical at first, but it wasn't innocent either. I stared at the screen, not surprised. Just confirmed. Thank you for telling me, I wrote back. I'm sorry, he replied, for how everything happened. You don't owe me anything, I said. Maybe not, he wrote, but I still wanted to say it. After that, we didn't talk much. Just occasional messages. Neutral. Careful. But something had shifted. Not emotionally. Not yet. Just awareness. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel's brand unraveled publicly. The website eventually went dark. Social media slowed, then stopped. People moved on faster than he expected. They always do. He tried reaching out once more. Different email. Different tone. You sabotaged my life, he wrote. If you had supported me through one mistake, none of this would have happened. I read it, then closed it. The truth was simpler than that. I removed my infrastructure. The rest collapsed because it was never independent. And that was never my responsibility. I didn't respond to Daniel's email, not because I was trying to punish him, but because there was nothing left to clarify. Some endings don't need closure. They just need distance. A few days after that message, Samuel reached out again. Do you want to grab coffee? He asked. Neutral ground. I've been dealing with family fallout. I hesitated, not because I thought it was inappropriate, because I understood the weight of it, but I also understood something else. Closure doesn't always come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from someone who saw it happen and didn't agree with it. So I said yes. We met at a small place near the water. Nothing curated, no performance. He showed up straight from work. Tired eyes, simple clothes. Real. How are you holding up? He asked. Better than expected, I said. He nodded like he believed that. Then he asked me something I hadn't been expecting. Did you ever feel like you had to shrink so he could feel bigger? I didn't answer immediately, because the question wasn't simple, but the answer was. Yes, I said. He exhaled slowly. Me too, he said quietly. That conversation lasted 2 hours. Not about Daniel. Not really. About patterns. About people who confuse attention with value. About what it feels like to constantly adjust yourself to maintain someone else's image. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was defending my stability. I just existed. After that, we didn't suddenly become close. No dramatic shift. No emotional declarations. We talked occasionally, once a week, sometimes less. No flirting. No intention behind it. Just consistency. And that was enough. Samuel didn't perform ambition. He lived responsibility. 12-hour shifts, early mornings, quiet routines, no audience, no need for validation. About a month after Daniel moved out, his company officially paused operations. The website went offline. Social accounts stopped posting. I didn't check. I didn't need to. People mentioned it, casually, like it was just another brand that didn't make it. He tried contacting me one last time. Different email, different angle. If you had stayed, he wrote, none of this would have happened. I didn't respond, because that wasn't true. If I had stayed, it just would have taken longer. A few weeks later, I ran into Samuel again, at a family birthday. His mother had invited me directly. I debated not going, but she had always treated me with kindness. So I went, just for an hour. Daniel was there. He avoided eye contact. Ryan wasn't. At one point, Daniel pulled Samuel aside in the kitchen. They argued quietly. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the dynamic. Him pointing. Samuel standing still, not reacting. That told me everything. Later that night, he texted me. He said I betrayed him, he wrote, by talking to you. I read it, then replied, are you comfortable continuing to see me, even casually? There was a pause. Then, I'm tired of living according to his emotional storms. That was the moment something shifted. Not dramatically, just honestly. 2 weeks later, he came over for dinner. Nothing elaborate. I cooked. We sat at the same kitchen table where Daniel and I used to have business discussions. But this time, there was no tension, no performance. Just conversation. We talked about what this would mean. Openly. If we move forward, I said, it won't be hidden. He nodded. I don't want hidden. No triangulation, no secrecy. I'm not interested in that, he said. I studied him for a moment. You're sure? I asked. Because this will get complicated. He met my eyes. It already is. That was enough. The next weekend, we went to a public art event in Tampa. Not a date, just visible. A mutual friend saw us. By Monday, Daniel knew. He called from a blocked number. I answered once. I thought it might be something practical. It wasn't. You're predictable, he said immediately, in the worst way. I didn't interrupt. You couldn't attract someone new, he continued, so you settled for my brother. I let him finish. Because people like him need to hear themselves. Then I spoke. I didn't choose your brother to compete with you, I said calmly. I chose him because he doesn't need an audience to feel valuable. Silence. Then, you're destroying my family. And no, I replied, you made your choices, I made mine. He said my name again, sharper this time. But I had already made my decision. I ended the call, blocked the number, and that was the last time we spoke. It's been 8 months now. Samuel and I are still together. Slow, stable. No brand launches, no curated narratives. He works his shifts. I work mine. We eat dinner without anyone trying to win. Daniel's company never relaunched. Ryan moved to another city for a development project. I haven't heard from him since. And honestly, I don't think about them much anymore. Because the truth is simple. If being boring means consistent, loyal, and unwilling to finance my own disrespect, then I'm comfortable with that. Some people confuse chaos with excitement. I don't.